So I just watched season 1, episode 8, Bombad Jedi. What happens in this episode is Padme, C3PO, and Jar Jar Binks, unfortunately, are going to meet with an old family friend of Padme's in order to try to get them to join the Alliance or the Republic. It's the Alliance later. But because Jar Jar is incredibly clumsy and nobody likes him, they decide to leave him behind with C3PO on the ship so he doesn't screw anything up. But then Padme gets captured because it turns out the family friend had actually made a deal with the Trade Federation, but they betray him because it's Padme and they hate Padme because they blame her for what happened in the Phantom Menace. Newt Gunray, that's his name. Jar Jar, while he's staying there through a series of accidents, he barely manages to survive, and 3PO too. He kind of saves 3PO while also screwing that up and destroys their ship. Then he and C3PO are trying to hide, and they find a Jedi robe, and they're like, where's the Jedi? But, oh, here's a robe. And then Jar Jar puts it on as a disguise, not realizing that everyone's going to think he's a Jedi then, because he's wearing a Jedi robe, which Newt Gunray immediately assumes. He's like, there's a Jedi, kill him. But then he escapes underneath the palace. It's like built on top of water. It's like, it's weird. Oh, and while this is going on, there's like rumors of there being a monster under the palace. They think it's just a myth, but then Jar Jar immediately runs into the monster, of course, but then they become friends, and he uses the monster to save the day in the end. Spoilers. That's what I should have said before that. I thought this was actually a pretty good episode. I mean, I'm kind of used to it now. I see what they're going for, and I like that they do jump around and show you like different things happening during this war and everything. I wish they made it a little more obvious when everything's happening, outside of like when they follow each other, like the malevolent stuff. It really doesn't like place itself anywhere in time. And I just think that would be nice, because it would make it seem more like this is a historical event when we're seeing like it from a kind of a historical perspective or something like that. I mean, just enough so that everyone could know like, oh, this happened like before this and after this and stuff like that. And it's not totally just random stuff, because this is supposed to be essentially the Chronicles of the Clone Wars, and I wish it was done just in that aspect. Outside of that, I think this is outside of that, for general, I think it's been a good show so far. Maybe a little ups and downs here, but this is a good episode, and I like Jar Jar now. He's great. No, I'm kidding. But I think he and C3PO play off well together. And I like that he calls him Threeso, unlike when Ahsoka calls R2 R2E, which again doesn't make any sense because R2 is already a nickname. Unless she's assuming R2 is his first name and the D2 is his last name. I don't know. It's stupid. Never mind. C3PO is played by an actor named Anthony Daniels, I believe. And, like, his entire career has just been playing C3PO, basically. I just looked it up. He's 75 now. But, I don't know. I just think that's kind of awesome that, like, if you need C3PO, Anthony Daniels, he'll do it. Just that he's been in it for so long, and it's like, he's, like, always been in demand, in a way, in one way or another. C3PO is always necessary for something, and Anthony Daniels is there to do it. Being that this is the first episode that really showcased C3PO, I mean, he's been around, but this is the one I feel that, like, we really see him in action, so to speak, or in inaction, as it were. See him in action, as one word. But Jar Jar was actually, I think they used him well, because that's something they didn't do in the Phantom Menace. For this, it starts out, he trips and falls, so Palpatine says, don't bring Jar Jar, pretty much, to Padme at the beginning. Jar Jar's just like, that's cool, whatever, I'll hang out on the ship. But then he has kind of to save the day, and then he destroys the ship, because he's an idiot. Just like, basically, he screws up until he screws up enough that he can succeed, sort of. One screw up leads to another screw up, leads to another screw up. And then, because of all these screw-ups, he puts it all together to make the plan that saves Padme. And that's not what happens in the Phantom Menace, in that he's basically a Mary Sue, actually. I mean, in a movie filled with Mary Sues, Jar Jar's also one. But just that, like he shows up out of nowhere. Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon trust him completely without him having to prove anything to him, and he's just like, "Oh, let's go underwater and do this thing." It's like, okay, and they follow him, and and like things are just basically handed to him. He's made like a general later on, and in that, like every screw up is actually a success for him, and that's shown pretty clearly in that battle where he's like just tripping over himself and it's blowing things up left and right and being like, "Oh, I screwed up again. Oh, but it was a win actually." Like here, they do what they should have done with him in the Phantom Menace and made him so like nobody likes him. Like everyone's kind of putting him down throughout. Even C-3PO, who's like basically useless 99% of it, except for that 1% of the time when like they really need someone to translate. C-3PO is basically kind of useless, but it's like Jar Jar, like even C-3PO's putting him down, because like he's just that accident prone. Really, it's not really his fault, I guess. See, I'm saying it for Jar Jar now because I'm like, hey, they used him well. He seems like a good character now, even though he is still silly and kind of annoying. But people recognize that now, But like I said in the Phantom Menace, it was like everyone just liked him for no reason. He liked him when he didn't deserve it. But here he's like a clumsy oaf, and people treat him as such until he saves the day at the end, and that's the only time people are really like, yeah, we see your value now, Jar Jar, good going, and that's what they should have done in the Phantom Menace. They should have built up to him becoming like earning the general title in that war at the end, which then would like redeem him. But being that everyone just likes him right away, he doesn't need the redemption arc. So Jar Jar's now best character ever created. I really like Padme. I mean, I think I see the Princess Leia in her. I think it's mostly just that she reminds me of Princess Leia, so I like her a lot. It's like, oh, that's where Princess Leia gets it from. Being like, oh, it's like a genetic thing among the Skywalker or the Amidala women. But here, like, she's like, there was a part in the Malevolent saga. Padme shows up and gets captured, but she spends all her time just breaking out. And then there's a good moment when Anakin like runs into her and he's like, we're coming to rescue you. He's like, I don't need your help, basically. It was just like kind of an interaction like that. But here it's like she gets captured and then she's like rendered useless for the rest of the episode and Jar Jar has to come and save her. But still, I mean, like she's trying to convince her family friend that he picked the wrong side pretty much. That's kind of a weird plot point too, I think, just because it establishes basically right away that they're longtime family friends. And he's like, actually, I sided with Newt Gunray because I decided I don't like you anymore or something. It was just a weird plot point. I mean, I'm fine with it. I just wish they had gone into more detail with it. I kind of like Newt Gunray just because he's like so stupid. It's like one of those things where it's not, I don't want it for like every villain or something. Newt Gunray specifically, I just like that I just like that he shows up on the scene basically, and he's so incompetent. He gives bad orders. He doesn't know anything. Like he immediately like thinks Jar Jar's a Jedi just because he's wearing a hooded cloak. Anyone with a hooded cloak is a Jedi. Oh man, he's a racist cop, isn't he? Oh god. But he's like the perfect arch nemesis for Jar Jar, for that matter, just because like he's like the only person dumber than Jar Jar in the entire Star Wars universe. Well, I would say it's a weaker episode, not as much because of Jar Jar, because like I said, they actually use him pretty well. The major story points in this of Padme being captured by her longtime family friend, who then has to decide whether to choose between her and Newt Gunray. I mean, the choice is pretty obvious, It just feels like it's a non-conflict. It's not really a conflict. It just feels like it's shoehorned in there for no reason. I feel like they could have done it more like maybe Newt Gunray shows up and captures both of them, right? Or something like that. And maybe then Padme can't escape because she has to protect the other guy. Because she's obviously very good at escaping. It just felt like it was a weaker story point and also a weaker like plot point in general with the whole, like I said at the beginning, like the whole grand scheme of the Clone Wars, I mean, this basically nothing happens. I mean, maybe that planet joins the Republic, but I'm still not sure why I should care about that. You know, because like it's not like they need more people. They have a whole bunch of clones. Or, you know, maybe they need more money, but why would they need more money? They have a whole bunch of clones. I feel the same way about the Trade Federation. They have so many robots and stuff. Why do they need more planets to join the Trade Federation? Unless this show starts showing me real evidence that either side is running out of money, I don't see any reason for them to need more planets on their side. This seems like a big issue throughout the series so far, and I don't understand why. I'd probably give it a 7.5 initially because I feel that lame plot point being like the driving force of the story is weighing it down on it pretty hard. I feel like I wanted to give it I wanted to take off let's take off half a point. Only half a point because it's just a personal preference of just them using Padme in a lame way. I really like Padme. That's just me again. But I want to give it a +1, both for making me like Jar Jar a little bit. Next time, if next time they use him, he's back to his old annoying self, and everyone just being like, "Oh, Jar Jar," I'm just gonna lose my fucking mind. Not another point, but like added in that first point, just giving C3PO his own episode and using him really well, and he and Jar Jar play off well together. Yeah, I guess that's it. So that's what 8 out of 10, right? So yeah, pretty good episode. And now I'm a Jar Jar fan. Not really.